Welcome back to the Mackem in the Middle podcast after another league game at home to QPR, a game that did finish 2-2, which maintains Sunderland's unbeaten start to the league season, albeit the scoreline definitely tells a different story to the actual game, and very shortly we will get into what happened. First and foremost, though, Michael, third league game, still unbeaten, 5 points from a possible 9. We'll get into the game and especially the last 10 minutes of the game and what happened. But looking at it as a whole, 5 points from 9 is not a bad return so far.
I agree. If you'd offered me that before a ball was kicked against Coventry, I would have snapped your hand off for it. And one of the things that I think has been mentioned a few times is that the intensity level of the Championship is night and day compared to League One. It actually shocked me just how ruthless and relentless the Championship is. Maybe less so in the QPR game, but certainly in the other two games, I felt that the speed of the game, the standard of the game, the strength that some of the players have got is just ridiculous. So to come away from 5 points from the opening 3 games, and just to be clear, after today's results, we're still in the top 6. So hashtag run for the playoffs is on. But nevertheless, I'm content. Yes, yesterday should have been a win. There's no getting away from that. It should have been a win. But I think if you, like you said, if you offered that unbeaten, let's forget the Sheffield Cup game because that's not a priority.
Yeah.
In the top 6 basically after 3 games, even though we know we're probably not going to finish there, you still would have taken it. It's a decent start, and it'll be tested in the games coming up. But we've done okay so far for me.
Yeah. And after what happened in the game yesterday, James, it is hard to actually look at the positives, but there are plenty of them for Sunderland. The teams that have played, obviously Coventry, Bristol City, and of course QPR, are probably going to be up there around top 12, top 10 come the end of the season. So to come away from them 3 games unbeaten shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah, I think Sunderland have done really well under Alex Neil. It's a weird one. Michael mentioned there, if you'd offered us this points return from the opening 3 games at the start of the season, we all would have taken it. But now, having played the 3 games, could have beaten Coventry City, although they did come on strong in the second half. I'll admit that. Bristol City obviously did well to get the win. And then you have QPR, which we should have won that. So looking at a situation where you could have had 9 points or 7 points, and we've got 5, which is great and it's fine. But in the context of having watched the 90 minutes in all 3 games, it does feel a little bit gutting. But saying that, I am massively pleased with the way it's going. I think Alex Neil's working wonders. Bearing in mind, this is the same side by and large that got promoted and had that run towards the back end of League One, with a couple of new additions, but not that many really. There hasn't been wholesale changes, so for him to still be working wonders in the level above is hugely impressive. And I honestly think he's a top 6 manager. To be fair, I think we've got one of the best head coaches in the league. But he needs backing in the transfer market now, and we've spoken in our group chats about being fairly relaxed when Ballard came in, Sims came in. I remember having a conversation that we're feeling relaxed. We trust the recruitment team. That was when there was 28 days left. But there's not 28 days left anymore. It's sort of times are ticking. There's about, 15 days left or 16, something like that, 17 maybe. Ballard obviously injured. I know we'll touch on that, but now we're starting to get a bit worried because we saw against Sheffield Wednesday that maybe the squad depth isn't there, and Alex Neil talked about it after the QPR game that although he rates the players he's got, he doesn't have the scope to change like for like in specialist positions when he wants to during Championship games, which for a man and a manager of Alex Neil's stature and talent is a huge problem given the landscape of the Championship, where managers, we've seen it in the 3 games, managers will change it, they'll make tactical tweaks. It's a bit of a sort of coach v coach battle at times. And if Alex Neil doesn't feel like he can make those in-game substitutions, then it's it's a real tough one for him. But you hope that the recruitment team can fire into gear. Speakman's done some great work in the past. I know this sort of method of using the whole transfer window and waiting can rile fans, and it's certainly frustrating. I get that, but it did pay dividends last season, although you could argue that Alex Neil did a lot to sort of mask the failures of recruitment, but the recruitment still brought the likes of Pichard and Evans into the club. So it's a real mixed bag. We're in the Championship and we're doing well, and we've got 5 points, and it's been fun. The crowds have been there. We've had moments. We've seen goals. So in that regard, it's like, yes, this is great. We're back. But the flip side of it, you want to see the club sort of push on, and there's still that little bit of niggling doubt over the second 11. And there's some talent in the second 11, and I'm sure they're going to play the parts in the season. But I think it's worlds apart, the first 11 and the second 11 at the moment.
Yeah. And also, James mentioned there the lack of depth that Sunderland do have at the minute, Michael. So, getting into the game, it was no surprise to see the same starting 11 named as the side that played against Bristol City.
No, it wasn't. I think that would have been probably the easiest selection headache, if you like, that Alex Neil would have had. He basically just go and stick the same 11 out, lads, and just go and do what you're doing. Obviously, Ballard getting injured early on didn't complicate things, but you're right, it wasn't a shock, because ultimately the game against Sheffield, the players that played didn't force their way into Alex Neil's thinking and to make him make a decision, basically. So, that again, it was just an easy one for it. It's just an easy decision for him to make. And to be fair, obviously, again, you want to get onto the game later, but obviously those players, obviously with the exception of Ballard, who went off injured, they for the most part did really well, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we'll get straight into the game because, quite frankly, there's so much to talk about. So, 9 minutes in, James, the first kind of incident happened in the game. That was, of course, Dan Ballard's injury. It didn't look a particularly nasty challenge at the time, but obviously, the longer he was down, you could tell something wasn't right, and obviously went off injured. I still don't think it's been confirmed anywhere as to the severity of the injury, how long he's going to be out for, but obviously there's rumours flying around about, the length, what actually happened. But that did change things for Sunderland, and not just in the game, but we've talked about transfers, depth needing to come in. That just adds another transfer target onto the already fairly big list as well.
It does, and it's a rumoured broken foot, of course. Obviously, we don't know exactly yet. Alex Neil said after the game that it didn't look good. Ballard sort of came off the pitch, sort of half of his own volition, half being helped by the physio.
Yeah.
So if it is a broken foot, then it must have been a nasty challenge in somewhere, sort of nasty at best, or just sheer clumsiness at worst, to be honest, because you don't get a broken foot by sort of a coming together. There must have been sort of some studs in there or something. I don't think the referee even gave a foul for that, did he? I think it went out for a throw, no yellow card.
I don't even think he acknowledged that Ballard had actually gone down either.
No, so I think to be honest, the referees missed a lot. I haven't actually been able. I didn't catch the highlights on ITV, and they didn't show it in the highlights package the club have released. So I haven't had a chance to look back at the replay. I only saw it in real time, but my sort of gut feeling is from being there at the ground and given the severity of the injury, potentially that it's at least a yellow, maybe even a red.
Yeah.
But we just don't know yet. But that is a massive blow because he's got championship experience. One of the only players in the squad to have championship experience, including Evans, Pichard, and a few smattering of games elsewhere in the squad. Bailey Wright, but Dan Ballard was a crucial part of this season's plans. And if it is a broken foot, you're looking at maybe 8 weeks, maybe more. Then it's getting back up to fitness, and so he should be back before the end of the season. He should be back around maybe Christmas time, whatever, back to full fitness. But it is a massive blow, and if we're going to play with three centre backs throughout the season, although we do know Neil likes to switch it up, he has played predominantly with the three in the 3 games so far. That is a big blow, and as we touch upon the squad depth there again. Elise is more of a left-sided centre half, so he didn't bring him on. Bailey Wright, he says he prefers to have in the middle. So the only option he reckoned, Alex Neil, was that Luke O'Nien came on as the right-sided centre back. I didn't think he did too much wrong, to be honest. I thought he played it nice and simple. There are a few moments, but you're going to get that. First game at centre half in the Championship, obviously. Big ask for him to come in, but I thought he was fairly decent. But you are right in what you say. I think we've talked in the group chat a lot, but you're looking at another striker. You need somebody centre midfield, a left back, a right back, maybe even 2 in centre midfield, and now you're looking at a centre back again. Alex Neil reckoned he wanted possibly a third goalkeeper as well. Yeah. So there's a lot to do, and just generally looking. The time is running out, and just generally looking at just the headlines rolling today, there's not a lot of movement in terms of the Championship at the moment, which is worrying. It all seems to have quietened down. I'm sure there'll be a smattering of deals that come in the next couple of days as teams start to get a bit more desperate and the wheels start to turn. But I think my main takeaway from post-match was that Alex Neil's actually getting you know, he was frustrated because of the game and the manner in which Sunderland drew the game. But I think he's getting a bit frustrated now, reading between the lines that the players aren't there, without sort of just reading body language, that is, without him sort of saying that he's frustrated. I just think that he possibly expected a few more.
Yeah. Well, other than that, it was 31 minutes that the next kind of main incident in the game happened, Michael, and it was Sunderland that took the lead. It was Ross Stewart who got his second goal of the season. A good play on the edge of the box. Dan Neil, who's ended up having a shot saved by Dieng, who was obviously a QPR goalkeeper and turned out to be the hero of the game, unfortunately. Ross Stewart's there for the rebound, makes it 1-0 Sunderland, and there was debate, not too much, about Ross Stewart as to whether he could step up to the Championship. He certainly has so far.
You can't. I don't think anyone can argue that he hasn't stepped up. And even before his goal, and even outside from his goals, we've watched him for the last, well, basically 18 months now. So we actually know that he's a really crucial player to the team in terms of the general play, the way that he works hard for the team. He comes deep to receive the ball. He can get attacks going when he needs to. And obviously, it's a good instincts finish. I mean, look, for me, I thought that I need to look at the goal back, but from what I remember, I'm trying to get the highlights on in front of us, so I'm trying to talk to stall it. But, you know, like the keeper for me probably should have done a bit better, or certainly if we conceded that, I'd be disappointed. But, you know, it's good instinct from Stewart because it's obviously shot, fumble, then a goal. So, and it does his, I said last week, I said after the Bristol City game that it's good that he hasn't waited too long to get his first Championship goal. So it's good that he's got basically his back-to-back goals in gear. It's back-to-back goals in back-to-back games, basically. So, for his confidence, as you know, the longer it goes on without a goal, or the longer it goes on where you don't score since your last goal, it does tend to have an effect on people. So, yeah, more ways than one in goal scoring terms, and in general play, you're right. Stewart has definitely stepped up.
Yeah. So it was 2 goals in 2 games for Ross Stewart, and 9 minutes later, Ellis Sims made it 3 goals in 2 games, James. And again, you know, talking about recruitment, he looks to have been a real good signing. Obviously, he is on loan from Everton, but, you know, he's very physical, he can hold the ball up, and he looks to be a very good finisher as well, based off the 3 finishes we've seen from him so far.
Yeah, I mean, his goal's brilliant, really, because the ball's played at him, but he creates the chance himself, really, by knocking it to Pichard. Obviously, Johansson comes in behind Pichard, manages to get the ball to Sims, but it's a great bit of hold-up plays you alluded to. The finish is there as well. Him and Stewart look like they've been playing together for about 3 years or something. They've got a brilliant understanding. They've both got pace. They're both powerful. They both can finish. Just to go back to the Ross Stewart goal, like if the striker's not there for that ball, the rebound, you're absolutely fuming. But of course, it's Ross Stewart. He's got that eye for goal. He's got that poacher's instinct, and he's there to stick it in. Ellis Sims seems to me to be of the same mould, and it's turning into quite the fruitful partnership already. But I mean, not to bring us down again, but the only thing is, what happens if one of them gets injured? Who's covering for them at the moment? At the moment, it's Jack Diamond. We know he's a winger, although he did decent against Sheffield Wednesday up front and in pre-season. To be fair, he did all right against Hartlepool United, but that's against League Two and League One opposition.
I was
He
going to say
still didn't
Hartlepool,
score,
isn't it, James? Whereas exactly. A much better standard, isn't it?
100%. And in those 2 games, he didn't score. I mean, he's done well by us knowing that he's a winger and playing up front when he shouldn't supposed to. But in reality, if you compare him to Sims and Stewart, there's no comparison. So yeah, I think that's a situation that just cannot be allowed to remain at the club in terms of not having any backup behind the 2 strikers. But yeah, with Pichard in behind, I've really enjoyed watching them, to be honest. I think the way they bounce off each other, the way one will drop deep, the way one will stay up top. Ross Stewart, the way he runs the channels, he's got this weird sort of, you don't think he's going to get there, but he does. Sims is the same. There's something to do with those long legs, I think, where you think there's no way they're going to get to that. The defender looks favourite, and then they sort of open the legs, big strides, and they get there. And it's just a willingness to work up front as well. It's really impressive. And yeah, Sunderland's recruitment team have done really well to identify the likes of Stewart and Sims. Although Stewart was more of a sort of Lee Johnson signing recommended to him by a colleague, an ex-colleague of his. But more signings like that would be great. I think it's just the depth at the moment, isn't it? But hugely encouraged by what we've seen by them so far. And I actually thought in the sort of the battle for who's going to lead the line for Scotland, you sort of had Lyndon Dykes on one side, who's predominantly featured for Steve Clarke's side, regularly featured in the Euros, has featured in qualifiers. I thought when you compared his game to Ross Stewart's today, I thought, on Saturday, I didn't think there was any comparison. I thought Stewart was by far the better player. But Lyndon Dykes doesn't have Alex Pichard playing behind him, so maybe that's got something to do with it.
I think you tweeted it as well. It is hard to believe that Alex Pichard was a free signing.
It's ridiculous, actually. Like when he came to the club, I was like, right, that's a good signing on paper, but he hasn't been fit for ages. He seemed to have some problems. League One, I don't think suited him at all, but he still stood out as one of the best players in the league, if not the best. But I think Championship football suits him. You have biases on players when they come into the club based around what you've read or what type of player, because obviously we knew he was a 10, we knew he was little, and you sort of form an opinion around that. First couple of games, you sort of think, right, okay, he's a really good creative player, and you sort of tar him with that brush, and then you don't actually acknowledge the dirty work that he does, and he gets stuck in everywhere. Sometimes he can be on the wrong side of the ball, but that's the position of the number 10. But he really does. He grafts as well. That's what I really like him. He's a grafting number 10, and he gets all over the pitch, and he really wants to win as well. You can see that, and I think being back in the Championship's given him a new lease of life. And to get him on a free, we've done very well. And to be fair, that was very much a Lee Johnson sign. To be honest, it doesn't fit the model of the club, the way the club are going. But if you can get players like him and Evans, I think when we desperately need more of that Championship experience. I'm not saying we should break from this model of signing young players for the future, because I think it could be very beneficial when done right. But there always needs to be a balance, especially in a Championship where you can be punished and naivety can be punished, as we've seen in football. It's like the old class of '92 thing. You can't win anything with kids. You can't win anything with kids. He was correct, but Manchester United won stuff that season because they had Eric Cantona and the likes of those experienced players. Not that I'm comparing Sunderland to Manchester United, but you do need experience to have success and to achieve your goals in the league, is what I'm trying to say. Obviously, Sunderland probably won't be heading towards top 6 or promotion, but to stay in the division or to consolidate, you need more Evanses, you need more Pritchards, especially when considering as well that Pritchard has had injury issues in the past, although he looks to be well up to speed now. And Evans probably won't play, 40 plus games in the Championship, and he's played the first 3 and equipped himself very well. But he's had injury issues in the past, so we need because I'm worried if one of those 2 goes, to be honest, in the next few weeks, because the experience on the pitch, although they will improve and they'll get better and they'll start to work the Championship out, you need that sort of doggedness, you need that know-how in League One, in the Championship. Otherwise, you can be massively in trouble.
Yeah. One thing I will say is,
if you don't mind, to sort of add to what James has said, is that I'm someone who's defended the regime quite a lot, and I think for good reason. I think you've signed the likes of your Pritchards, your Clarks, your Roberts, your Evans, your Danny Batts in League One. I don't know how they deserve. I personally don't think the criticism that they're getting is warranted, not to that extent. However, I do agree with James that I think that we need to start moving along, getting some players in, and especially when you look at the next 3 months, I think I counted, we've got something like 7 or 8 midweek fixtures because of the way it's structured with the World Cup. And that's the problem with it. As good as Evans has been, that's the issue. He can't. It's not fair to expect him to be able to play Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. So we've got to get the depth into it and actually be able to rotate in better quality, I suppose.
To add on to that as well, I think Michael's spot on, and I'm probably sounding a bit pessimistic and a bit down on the recruitment. I actually think the recruitment team has done extremely well under Christian Speakman. I think there's been the odd mistake here and there, but it's a learning process and you'd expect that. But I think by and large, to get Alex Pichard for free is a masterstroke. Although Lee Johnson did have a hand in that. Corey Evans looks like a great signing. Someone who played extremely well these past 3 games and impressed me again was Dennis Serkin. I think he is a fantastic fan.
He's a player that I think got a lot of criticism last season. And
I think
for me, I don't think he did anything particularly.
I don't think that was warranted either. I think a lot of people made him out to be really bad, and I'm like, no, he's not. He's actually
playing a new position as well, isn't he?
Who can actually defend.
We seem to like hammering a left back at Sunderland. I thought I wonder if that plays a part of it.
We have Callum McFadden in there, I suppose.
That's true. I mean, but Serkin in that left-sided centre half spot, I think, is done really well. I was talking to Craig Clark about this today at the Sunderland women's game. Craig does stuff for Wise Men Say, And we were talking as well, what's impressed us about Serkin is he's moved from Tottenham, where he's been playing under 23 football quite comfortably in front of, I don't know, 900 people or whatever they get at under 23 games, if they even allow people in. And he's adapted to playing in front of anywhere between 20,000 to 40,000 or, 80,000 at Wembley. And he's done it very well. And he lost his father as well, I think, before he moved up to Sunderland. And I remember speaking to him after Wembley, and he was just gone in terms of his emotions. He was just knackered because he put such a shift in. But he's a hugely impressive young man for me as well, in the way he's adapted, the way he's applied himself, the way he's just got his head down and worked. Never seems to be any trouble. And I think we've got a gem there. So in terms of, there's probably loads that goes on with recruitment that we don't see, because we just look at it as, are they a good player? And how much are they going to cost? What type of deal it is? What's the contract? Is it a loan? Is it a permanent? What attributes have they got on the field? But I think it goes a lot deeper than that in terms of recruiting characters who can come to Sunderland and do well. Do they fit with the area? Are they intelligent? Will they understand the fans' feelings? Will they understand the area? All of that sort of profile and stuff goes on behind the scenes that we don't necessarily see or think about, which is completely at odds with how it used to be. Because I'm thinking of the Premier League era, and certainly the last time we were in the Championship, it was more, who can we get, when can we get them, not are they the right fit. It was more, will they come up to Sunderland, not did they want to come up to Sunderland. It was like, can we get them, or who can we get to Sunderland, rather than actually looking at if they would be a good fit. So I think that deserves a lot of credit as well. Although the proof's in the pudding with transfers, and if we don't sign anybody come January when we're second bottom, or if we're second bottom and we're in the midst of an injury crisis, it could all go horribly wrong. So there's definitely a balance, but there has been some great work done, definitely, as Michael points out.
Yeah. And obviously after 2-0, Michael, Sunderland deserved the lead, played well. But then the potential kind of debate around the squad depth comes in. Obviously, Alex Neil made a few subs in the second half. Ellis Sims came off. As people will say, was that the right decision? Maybe yes, maybe no. But again, it's one of them things that if you did risk an injury to him, you've got no one to replace him. But kind of like James alluded to earlier, Alex Neil does want players to come on off the bench, impact a game, and play the same role that we were using, prior to them coming on. The players that came on didn't suit that style. They didn't really offer anything to the game. They didn't have a positive influence on it.
No, it's easy to say that now. This is an unpopular opinion, right? I don't think the lack of squad depth cost us yesterday. I think that was. We'll get onto it later, but for me, the reason we didn't win the game was because it was poor game management, and there was experienced players on the pitch, so we really didn't have an excuse for it. But I agree with you. For me, the perspective I looked at with Sims is that at the time, QPR were growing into the game a little bit, but I didn't really feel like they were really doing anything. I know that. There was a QPR fan on social media in particular, and I know you can only gauge so much off social media, but they were saying we had more shots in the game. Sunderland shouldn't feel as hard done by as they did, and it's like, well, just because you've had more shots in the game doesn't mean that you've been the better team. Like a lot of the shots that they had were pretty much well over the bar, from like 10 yards over the bar. That's not really a good opportunity.
Yeah, that's the thing, Michael. I actually had the stats up earlier, and I was having a read. Sunderland had 16 shots with 8
on target.
And didn't say QPR had 20 or something?
QPR had 20
when
shots.
When did they have 20 shots?
QPR had 20 attempts on goal, but only 4 on target. So that tells a story, really.
Only 8 off target as well. So that means what? 8 were blocked as well. So
because you class that as a shot. You can have 20 attempts on goal, but 19 of them can be, from the halfway line. Yeah. So having more attempts,
it's about the quality of chance and not the quantity of it.
Exactly. So,
yeah. And I think Sunderland created the better of them. The only one good chance I can remember, apart from the goals, when the QPR created there was a chance in the first half where someone at the back post was unmarked and should have headed it into the back on target. That aside, I genuinely can't remember a great chance QPR had. So for me,
I think Tyler Roberts had possibly one when he came on, but over
the second half.
Yeah.
I think.
Go on, James. Go on. I'll listen.
Sorry, I agree with you, Michael, because I don't necessarily believe that the change of shape in the second half was to blame for Sunderland conceding the 2 goals. I actually think in that period where Roberts came on, he looked quite dangerous, and although he gave the ball away quite a lot, I think Sunderland looked quite likely to get a third.
People always say a 2-0 advantage as well, probably one of the most dangerous in football, because the third goal is the one that sometimes decides a game.
Yeah, and I don't think Alex Neil was necessarily trying to push for that goal, but I think the problem lies in that Roberts really wanted to prove himself. Us drawing 2-2 isn't his fault at all, but we were sort of pushing for that third. And then I know we'll come on to them, but you look at the 2 goals, and the lad Chair probably shouldn't be on the pitch for what he's done to Gooch. He then scores a free kick, which you can't really do much about. You could say Patterson could save it, but it's a big ask. And then
that's a good free kick as well.
Oh, it's a brilliant free kick. So there's defensive chaos for the second goal, which you're going to get whether you've got Bailey right on the pitch or not, or whether you've changed the shape or not. To be honest, QPR are still coming with that pressure, so I don't think it's a shape thing. I agree with you, Michael. I think it's a composure and a sort of match practice coming up to speed with the championship thing. I don't think it's got too much to do with shape. And possibly a little bit of revisionism as well, because if he doesn't bring Ellis Sims off, we're all going, well, we've got Sheffield United on Wednesday, so
exactly,
it's a real tough one, and it's such a freak game, such a freak occurrence. The goal
99 times out of 100, we see that out and we win the game. I'm telling you, it's one of those things. It's just a very rare freak occurrence, like James said. And for me, that's the whole point. The reason Sims came off was because we were 2-0 up. And for me, we were looking in cruise control to get a result out of it. That's not the reason that we dropped 2 points. Sims is a striker, not a defender. That doesn't account for us conceding 2 goals.
Actually, if you look at the if you look at the second goal, you could argue that it hasn't really got too much to do with the change of shape, because you've got Gooch and Roberts who should block the cross but don't, because they're presumably a bit knackered or they just couldn't get out. Whatever the reason is, for me, that's not a shape thing. It's just I'm hesitant to call it desire, because they did want to get there, they just didn't get there fast enough. Just experience, know-how, all of that sort of stuff. But I said on the Raw podcast that we do for the Sunderland Echo after the game that it's one of those days where you could have won that 3-1 or 4-0. Tyler Roberts, I thought, actually was a real bright spark for them when they came on. But they could have easily been a man, 2 men, even 3 men down, with the Dykes on Danny Bart thing as well. So it's just football, isn't it? It's just one of those. But what I will say is that I would rather this sort of thing in the Championship than pretty much anything in League One, to be honest.
Well, we did that last year, I think, in League One. I think it was like Fleetwood away, wasn't it? We were 2-0 up, and it was basically a similar style where we
was 10 men as well, wasn't it?
Goals. Sorry?
I think they had 10 men that game as well, didn't they?
I'm not entirely sure about that game. I think we had a couple of games, obviously, with the 10 men thing when we were winning and then conceded. But the point I was originally going to make was that you got to remember Sims probably hasn't had, I don't know how much of pre-season Sims has had. So you got to remember this is probably only his second start. Second game of senior football this season, and like James said, you've got 2 games, and bearing in mind both are away from home. You've got Sheffield United on Wednesday, and then you've got Stoke on Saturday, just 2.5 days later, basically. So for me, the decision to take him off, I thought, was quite justified, just to try and look ahead to the games ahead. And at that point, hardly anyone would have seen QPR doing what they did. So for me, it's not down to a lack of, I mean, obviously down the squad depth, you could argue is the reason that, we had to take Sims off and weren't able to bring another striker on, maybe. But in general, the change of shape and the change of personnel and the squad depth, for me, I think people, I don't know, people are entitled to their own opinion, but for me, I strongly disagree. I don't think the change of shape had anything to do with us dropping points.
And I think Patterson for the second goal as well, obviously, he does well in the first instance because he actually makes a really, really, really good save to concede the corner. The corner comes in, the ball comes back out. QPR managed to get a ball back in, great delivery. And then the keeper's got it in the back of the net because Patterson's sort of come when he shouldn't, having sort of battered it away previously. So he'll learn from that as well. That mistake by Patterson, he's still a young goalkeeper. He hasn't got much EFL experience, never mind championship experience. He's come on leaps and bounds since the goalkeeper was so sort of beginning or midway through last season. So as long as he learns from that and he grows in stature and confidence, I'm not saying I haven't got an issue with it because I was gutted at the end of the game, but as long as he continues to learn and improve at the rate that he's going, I sort of have no problem with it because I think he's a potentially really, really good asset for Sunderland, and he's come through the academy. That's the sort of thing we need to be building on and encouraging, not just saying, right, he's made a mistake, get him out. Obviously we need more squad depth. That's a given, but it's not a case of, this lot are useless, sign some more players so we can stay up. I think there's something there that just need a little bit of support, and Alex Neil's clearly a brilliant manager working with a group of extremely talented players that just need that little bit more just to make sure.
Yeah. And obviously, the second goal is a free goal. 9 times out of 10.
9 times out of 100.
one time out of 100. The keeper doesn't even win the header normally if they go for a corner. Never mind put it in the top corner. So you can kind of look at that and say fair play. But again, going back to the free kick, you could argue could Sunderland have made a foul slightly higher up the pitch potentially? But we mentioned it a little bit, but it turned out to be quite important in the end because it was Cher that got the goal and got the assist for the second one. The referee's looking right at it when it happens. He has his hand around Gooch's throat. That is a red card, James.
Yeah, I think by the letter of the law, it is a red card. You're not supposed to raise your hands to players' faces. Gooch doesn't make a lot of it. He sort of stands there and takes it like the hard adopted Mackem that he quite clearly is. But yeah, I think the only sort of mitigating factor for Cher is that he hasn't got a closed fist. But I don't think really that should matter. He's clearly got him by the throat. The referee's right there.
It's probably not the right thing to say, but if Gooch goes down there,
I think you're right. Of course, are we having this conversation if Sunderland win 2-0 and he doesn't score the free kick? Probably not. It's probably an afterthought. It's not such a big topic of debate, but the fact remains is that the player that probably shouldn't have been on the pitch scored the goal that got QPR back into it. So it's very difficult not to talk about it. And a couple of QPR fans saying that, would you have been saying it a red if it was Gooch on Cher? Well, yeah, probably, because I think it was a red card.
Yeah, we said against, I can't remember who it was against, but we all accepted that Luke O'Nien should have been sent off in one of the games. It's not a case of who would say it for. It's just a rule in football.
That was against Coventry, wasn't it? That was I think I called it brainless at the time, and it was. He should have gone. 100% should have gone. So yeah, Chair should have been off, but marvelous free kick by the guy. To be honest, really, really, really good free kick.
Yeah, and obviously it did finish 2-2, Michael. So it is 5 points from 9. It is hard to accept it after that, but again, if someone said to you before the game, would you take a point out of this? You'd say yes. It keeps the unbeaten league run going. There's plenty of positives.
There is, and if you want to look at any other team that has fallen to QPR, it would have been Middlesbrough because they were 3-0 down at QPR. I know that was away from home, but they were 3-0 down at QPR and got beat off them. And that's a team that's got arguably one of the best managers in the league that's trying to go for promotion. So QPR aren't a bad team. I know they had a few players missing, but that's not Sunderland's problem. You can only play what's put in front of you.
Yeah.
So in general, we've done well. And actually, I think in all 3 games that we've had, again, it's a simple fact that we are going to have to take time to get used to the speed at this level. And yesterday, I thought Sunderland showed great signs of being able to hold their own in the Championship. We know we need more players. That's obvious. And the recruitment team will rightly come under criticism if we don't get those players in the remaining weeks of the window. But on the whole, yesterday for about 87 minutes, I thought Sunderland were easily the better team and were in cruise control for a victory. And it's just down to a freak 10 minutes that ended up stopping us get the 3 points, or the extra 2 points, I should say. But you're right. Across all 3 games, I think in patches, some have actually been really, really good. First half against Coventry, very, very good. There's the period between the second and third goal of Bristol City, I thought we were excellent. And across the whole game yesterday, I thought first half we did really well. Second half, I thought until the free kick, our game management was actually really good. So we're going to have teething problems. That's just going to have... People are going to have to accept the fact we're not going to dominate every single minute of every single game. In League One, fair enough, we're expected to dominate a lot of games. In here, we're a team that's come up after 4 years in League One. And again, this league is ferocious. It's ferocious compared to what League One, where you had time on the ball. Here, you don't get anywhere near as much of that. You don't. So that's going to take time to adapt to.
You have teams that actually want to attack you as well, Michael, who think they can beat you, which I think is a massive change from League One. I'm not saying teams in League One didn't think they could beat us, but the way they went about trying to beat us was...
No, but teams in the Championship, sorry to interrupt, James, but teams in the Championship don't time waste after 3 minutes to this.
No,
I agree with you completely.
But the ball is in play for a lot longer. There's a lot more physical exertion. There's a lot more mental exertion. And, Michael's dead right in what he says. I remember sitting there on Saturday with 10 minutes to go thinking, what superlatives can I use? What words can I use and find to describe this Sunderland performance at Alex Neil? Because it's been brilliant and phenomenal. And then two goals have completely changed the narrative surrounding it, which is just the way it goes. But for 80 minutes, I thought they were excellent. Sergen, Pichard, Neil, we haven't mentioned much. Evans, outstanding. Even O'Nien coming into the back 5, I thought was good. Lyndon Gooch, fine. All of these players lost the ball at the time and made some mistakes, but the courage to try and play a bit more. Sims and Stewart up front, there's definitely a lot to get excited about.
Yeah. Player ratings, we'll quickly get through as fast as we can. Michael, I'll start with you. Once again, I'll not be giving you one, so we'll be going off yours. Michael, Anthony Patterson.
I would say probably 6, just because for the most of the game he was largely untroubled, and I didn't think he had a chance with either of the 2 goals personally. So yeah, I would personally go 6.
Yeah, and James?
I'll go 6 as well. He did what he had to do, but then I do think he gets caught underneath the goal for the second one. I think he comes when he probably doesn't need to, but the mitigating circumstances, he has been brave and batted one away seconds before, so he's probably thinking he can do the same again, just can't get through the crowd. But yeah, a learning curve for him, I think.
Yeah. Lyndon Gooch was at right wing back again. Michael got up and down well, did his job. Rating for you?
7, probably. I think that across the whole game, I think he got up and down really well, as you said, and I think defensively, even as we were coming a bit more under the cosh in the second half, I actually think in general he was really, really good. I think his positional sense was very good. He cleared the ball when he had to. He showed some great strength up against. Was it Albert Adomah? I think he was up against for good parts of that game anyway. But he was up against someone I know who had pace and a bit of muscle about him, so acquitted himself well. So I'd personally go with a 7.
Yeah, that's fair enough, James.
I'll go with a 6, maybe just because he needed to get a little bit closer to the QPR lad who crossed the ball in for the winner, but that's probably me being very critical. He did have a decent game, and I think actually his improvement from the first half of the Bristol City game has been quite impressive, because he was caught out a couple of times, but he's managed to sort of adjust to Championship life at right wing back.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan Ballard obviously went off injured, so it'll be Luke O'Nien that we could be waiting for all this time. I thought he did fairly well, Michael.
I agree. Again, I'll probably go with a 7. I think a lot of people, I think people shouldn't look at the fact that he's just Luke O'Nien at centre back and replace Ballard, and the fact he's not a centre back, and assess his actual performance. I think for me, his performance in general, I thought was pretty good. And again, it's one of those where he's actually having, again, like a few other players, he's having to adapt to. He's the first time playing centre half in the Championship against the much quicker sort of speed of opposition. So, me personally, maybe I'm being generous, but I thought he did solid enough. Obviously, the last 10 minutes was just a freak thing that the players were affected by as a whole. But I thought, on general, 7 for me. I thought he did quite well.
Yeah, James.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree with that. Actually, I thought he did fairly well. Gave the ball away a couple of times, but so did most of Sunderland's players at some point, and so did most of QPR's players. So yeah, I think 7, given the way he came into the game, and didn't really put a foot wrong for sort of the remainder of the first half. So yeah, a 7.
Yeah. Obviously, Danny Barr in the middle again. Start of the season, few people might have been a little bit surprised to see him in the start 11, but I think he certainly justified his place. The only time he really got caught out in the game was very late on. I think it was actually in the build-up to the equaliser, it might have been pace-wise, but other than that, I thought he was solid, Michael.
This is going to be the podcast of 7s from me.
Better than last year's 6s.
Yeah, I know it changes from 6s, doesn't it? He again, I think, showed some good leadership qualities throughout the game. Just kept things calm for the first 85 minutes. Yes, people might think I'm being too positive, but I'm choosing to focus on the first 85 minutes. In general, did well again. 7.
Yeah, James.
Yeah, I give him a 7. I give him a 7 as well. Pretty solid. Can he do anything for the free kick? No, not really. And the whole team have to try and do a bit better and be a bit more composed for the second goal. So it's hard to really mark him down too heavily, really, even though his defence has conceded 2 goals.
Yeah. Obviously, Dennis Serkin was mentioned a little bit, Michael. He's been good so far this season, very good as that left side of the back 3, and I thought he was very good again against QPR. Couldn't think there.
Well, you can 3 guesses what's the number. I'd say a 7 again. I know it's like a shock number again, but again, I'm running out of things to say, but I just think that he's someone that I've stuck up for quite a lot, and I think that a lot of people make him out to be a lot worse than he actually is. And again, like we've already alluded to earlier, that I think he's just coming on leaps and bounds. And with all the adversity James has said before, I think that's commendable. And yesterday, I thought in general did fine. Again, part of a back 3 up against some QPR players that got pace about them. Didn't put a foot wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah. Dennis Serkin, James?
Yeah, 7 as well. Thought he was very, very good, and has impressed me all season.
Yeah. Jack Clark, left wing back. First half performance was definitely very poor. I think it's fair to say, and I don't think anyone would particularly disagree with that. Definitely got better and grew into the game as the second half wore on, Michael.
Probably a 6. I think at times his attacking play was actually decent, but for me, I think that I still have question marks over his work rate defensively. I do think he is getting better at it, to be fair, but for me, that does need to improve. But again, he is. I think I keep forgetting he is 21 years old, but he obviously has had a bit of experience at the championship. But on the whole, about a 6 for me is about right.
Yeah, James, for you?
I actually thought Clark was fairly decent. I'd probably give him a 7. I think as you mentioned, his work rate's improving all the time. Playing in an unfamiliar role, I think he's starting to adapt. I think he looks like potentially one of Sunderland's best attacking outlets when he does get the ball. I was quite pleased with Clark's performance. Perhaps I've missed something there, and maybe he just catches my eye because he's good on the ball, and maybe I'm not watching him enough when he's not on the ball. But I thought he was fairly good.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Corey Evans in midfield, and I'll chuck it out there. I thought he was the best player on the pitch. Whether you two agree with that, I'm sure we'll find out very shortly. Michael?
8. I think he just completely dictated majority of the game from the midfield. Obviously, I've said before that I still believe we can't expect him to play 46 games when you've got a frequent backlog of games. But for yesterday, I thought he was really, really good. Just controlled everything, dictated everything, stopped QPR getting much of a foothold in the game, and got our attacks going. It was basically the deeper linchpin of our attacks. So 8 for me.
Yeah, James?
Yeah, I have to agree with everything Michael said there. Tidy in possession. He's good at nicking the ball as well. Yeah, a proper midfielder's performance. 8.
Yeah. Daniel, obviously alongside him, Michael, doesn't go down as an assist, but obviously it was his shot that ended up being parried into the path of Stewart for the opening goal. Fairly solid performance from Neil, I would say, for large parts of the game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So my rating would be yet another 7. What a shock, right? But I think that again, he's another one that I think when you've got, I think you can tell he's helped by the fact he's got Evans alongside him. And yeah, there was a couple of sloppy moments, but that aside, I thought Neil acquitted himself fairly well.
Yeah, James?
Agreed again. 7. Thought he was really bright. Good shot for the goal that comes out of Stewart. I think he's getting better all the time. I was listening to Total Sport when Alex Neil was on, and one of the callers said, just give Dan Neil 10 games, and I agreed. And I think Neil's always rated Dan Neil, but he just needed taking out the firing line last season. I think he's come back in, and you're starting to see his quality. He's got a lot to learn about the Championship, but he's young enough and he's talented enough and he's got the technical ability, and I think he's a real asset for Sunderland.
Yeah. Alex Pichard playing just in front of the midfield too, Michael. Once again, we've talked about him and we will continue to talk about him as long as this season goes on. Very good player and, again, just a very good performance.
Yeah, maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I haven't heard many people mention Pichard. I would go with an 8. I think that, once again, I think he obviously gets a great assist for the second goal. His vision throughout the game I thought was really good. Like similar to Bristol City, although for me not quite as good. I still feel that a lot of the things we do go through Pritchard. A lot of the attacking play, like what Evans kind of starts things from deep. Pritchard really accelerates it in an attacking sense. And yesterday, I thought in general, I thought he was very good, and I think QPR struggled to live with him, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, definitely. James?
Yeah, I give him a 9. I think best player on the park. I think he was slightly better than Evans. Just looks a cut above. Looks like he could play for any team really in the Championship, and I think you're starting to see why he's had so much money paid for him in the past. Just a very, very classy footballer.
Yeah. Moving on to the front two, Michael. Sturridge and Suarez were the old SAS, and I think we've certainly found the new one now in Sims and Stewart. Start with Stewart. Like we said, 2 games, 2 goals for him. And it's just so much more about him than just the goals he scores. His work rate, his hold-up play, how he drops deep to collect the ball and take us up the pitch. Just absolutely everything he does. And he's doing it in the Championship now.
Yeah, 8. Yeah, 8. I think that he showed great awareness for the goal. You've just pretty much summed it up for us. His general play is so much more important than just his goals, but he's adding goals to it in the Championship as well. So 8.
Yeah, James?
Yeah, agree. 8 for me as well. Brilliant player.
And on to the last player, Ellis Sims. Once again, 3 goals in 2 games, Michael. Very important that we keep him fit as well, especially now that we currently only have 2 strikers. But again, very good performance. Held the ball up well, chased the ball down well. QPR didn't really know what to do with them all game.
No, they didn't, did they? I think, like James said, he took his goal very well yesterday, and I agree with it completely. He has to hold someone off and adjust his footing as he's about to try and adjust his body to go and score the goal. And obviously, he helped set the chance up himself. So, and in general, I think him and Stewart. I'll tell you right now, I might make a statement here. I think Stewart and Sims have potential to be the best striking partnership in the Championship outside of the teams going for promotion if they could stay fit. But as far as yesterday goes, Sims, another very good performance for me, another 8.
Here we go. There's going to be an article on Transfer Tavern tomorrow. Michael Bowers predicts Sunderland partnership to be better than every other team in the Championship. I can see it coming.
Yeah, pretty much.
Would you agree with that, James?
Yeah.
Seventh best partnership in the Championship.
I mean, they're both young enough and they've both got the talent. Clearly, you just got to keep them fit. I think that they're both brilliant. I will admit I haven't seen every strike partnership in the Championship just yet, so I'll reserve judgment on that one.
Yes.
Ask me after Christmas, and I'll let you know how Michael's claims coming.
Yeah,
but
if they keep this up, they do have potential.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, you can see it. I mean, Sims has got massive pedigree coming from Everton. He's done well at Hearts, and you can just see he's a good footballer. And Ross Stewart's the same. So, yeah, Ross Stewart. I've said it before, but it's sort of his stature, demeanour, and his movement, and the way he finishes. Although I think Quinn, obviously a better player, played at a higher level, but he's just got that sort of magic about him for me. Ross Stewart. So there's another headline for the websites. Well, as I compare Ross Stewart to now Quinn, who played about 174 times for the Republic of Ireland. But yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. In terms of man of the match, I'm fairly sure people can work out who everyone is going for. So looking at the next game, Michael, Sheffield United away. Another game on Sky. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out. But probably the hardest test we've had yet.
People are going to see. I've been trying to be Mr. Positive, and I'm going to end on a negative. This is where I think our first defeat's going to come into it. I think we're putting a decent performance. I'd like to hope we will, but I think we'll get beat 1-0. But I would stress that these next 3 games for me, and forget Stoke and Norwich have had in different starts of the season. Forget that. Actually, Sheffield United haven't had a great start either, but they've got good sides. So for me, this is going to be a real benchmark to see how competitive Sunderland can be. So I would say a narrow defeat. But obviously, that it can only work upwards from there if we get anything.
Yeah.
Hope I'm wrong.
I'm fairly sure you don't like score predictions, James, but I'll push you for a result prediction.
I think Sheffield United will probably win because I was looking at their squad earlier. I know Billy Sharp went off against Middlesbrough at half-time with an ankle knock, so he's a bit of a doubt. But then you're looking at the likes of Sander Burge, Ryan Brewster. These are players who've played in the Premier League and have been bought for a lot of money. Obviously, that doesn't guarantee that they're any good, but it's a pretty good indication.
Yeah.
They've got Kadara, who came on loan from Brighton. He was linked with Sunderland. He looks a decent player. They've got players like Ollie McBurney, who's proven in the Championship. Then you're looking through the squad, Kieran Clark, ex-Newcastle, who's dropped down from the Premier League. Tommy Doyle's on loan from Manchester City. Same with James McAtee as well. George Baldock, the defender. Jack O'Connell, John Egan, ex-Sunderland. Jack Robinson. Daniel Jefferson, who as well was linked with us, was on loan at Burton. Nearly signed for Sunderland, actually. He's an exciting player. Look at the midfield, players like John Fleck, Chris Basham at the back as well. The list is never ending in terms of their squad depth. Players like Oliver Norwood. So yeah, I think it's a tough ask for Sunderland to beat Sheffield United, but we did beat them when they were a Premier League team and we were a League One team.
Cup. Yeah.
So in the Carabao Cup, Max Power, I think, was it Max Power scored the goal?
It was, yeah, just outside the box, yeah.
You just never know, and especially because Sunderland beat Sheffield United at Burnley under Jack Ross that season, and then he got sacked. So it's just one of those, isn't it? You never know with football, but I think Mickey Luff said it actually on the Wise Men Say podcast that this could be a very big welcome to the Championship game. And I could see that happening. I hope it doesn't. I think Alex Neil will be competitive. He'll have everybody raring to go, but it's just a big ask given the pedigree of some of their players. It's. I was reading some Chris Wilder quotes after the Middlesbrough Sheffield United game. Obviously, Chris Wilder now manager of Middlesbrough, and he was saying that it's actually by and large, barring Ramsdale and a couple of others, it's by and large the same squad he had in the Premier League when they did well and finished 9th or something.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, they're a good team.
Very good team. I still fancy a 2-0 win.
They're definitely a good team, but I would say that for this game, because we're not favourites for this. I mean, we're very rarely going to be favourites anyway. But the nature of the Championship is that sometimes results don't go the way you expect. So although I think we'll lose, the pressure's off Sunderland for this game. As long as we're putting a good performance, I'd like to think people will be patient enough.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. If I had Sheffield United on at Acker, Sunderland would definitely win because everything's went downhill this season on that term. But we'll wrap it up there. We will, of course, have a preview out for that Sheffield United game, either out tomorrow or on Tuesday. And, of course, after the game, we will talk about what happened. Hopefully no more refereeing decisions, but I'm sure that will come up again in the season. But until next time, it's been a pleasure. We will see you later.
That's all, folks.